Welcome back, everybody. You guys are fantastic. You're like super punctual. I really love it. And I'm sure it's going to be worth your time. For all of the people standing in the back of the room, there's a bunch of seats over here, so you don't need to stand. There's like plenty room. There's at least like 10, 15 seats here. So please do come and join us up front. And thank you so much for making it back. I hope you got a good coffee in the break. And I'm really excited about our next speaker. Jean-Marc Denis is one of the few people that had the opportunity to work and help create several multi-billion user, billion user plus applications. So he's currently serving as a product design director at Meta for Instagram and Messenger. Again, two products that I'm sure like vast majority of you use on a daily basis. Prior to his current role, he worked for Google on projects such as Daydream, Inbox, and Gmail. Again, something that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. And he's been born and raised in the south of France. Jean-Marc moved to San Francisco in 2012 after Google acquired Sparrow, the company he was working for. He's been a self-taught designer, and he's constantly learning skills. When I like had a chat with him, he's saying like he's big into 3D right now and exploring what's that kind of like mean for the future. So he's like a role model and constantly re-educating himself, which I think all of us in tech need. And in our fireside chat, we'll share a little bit about his insight for designing for impact, harnessing and collaborating innovation, using data, and what that means for the design process. So all, please give a warm welcome to Jean-Marc. It's super exciting to have you, and that you made your way all the way from France to...
It's not that far.
Yeah, it's not that far, but you still had like a stopover. So what's like, before we start, what's your first impression of Cluj and looking around? What's like the first thing as a designer that like that you've like seen or recognized?
For sure. Love the architecture. A lot of history there. It's very green, which I appreciate too. So yeah, I think it's a really good city.
All right. Well, we hope, we already like said like next year he needs to come back. Today he's like very brave, joins us for a day. He's a very busy man. But he said like next year he'll join us a little bit longer and stay also for the parties and the events, so that he can see a bit more of the beauty of Romania.
I'm missing all the fun, basically.
You do, but well, anyways, thank you so much for coming in. So let's start with something that is like a particular strength at Meta, which is the role of data in the design process, right? Like so, I'm really curious on your perspective, like, and what like has data taught you in creating products for 1 billion plus users?
Data. I see data as a tool. Obviously, I think there's different kind of data. We leverage both kind of data, quantitative and qualitative at certain stages of the process. And I think it has been a very useful tool to do many things. So obviously, identify the user problems, right? Through user research. Sorry, you will understand what the people problems are, and try to start thinking about how to solve for them. What is the solution? Then the quantitative aspect is also a very powerful tool, especially through iteration. When you start looking at the numbers, they start telling you stories about how people are using the app or their behaviors within the app, things that they are successfully doing or unsuccessfully doing, and so you can quickly iterate and fix those issues. And then, there's the straight-up user feedback, what people think about your app, what people want. So there's a certain kind of perpetual audit that you can do through different channels. Twitter is actually a really good channel that I really like to do. Sometimes during coffee in the morning, you just browse through Twitter with some keywords and see what people think about the app and what people are looking for.
Was there a point, either at Meta and any other points of your career, where basically you thought, hey, this would like never work, and like the data and like the usage showed you the other direction, or the way we said, hey, this is a sure thing, I'm guaranteed that this is going to blow up, but it didn't. So any like insights on this kind of path?
It's an interesting one. I think it is probably not the most recent one, but it is one that's kind of stuck with me. So back in the day when we redesigned the whole entire Messenger app, we designers really wanted to have something called dark mode. Back then it was coming up with iOS, and we were really excited about adding this dark mode feature. And so we developed it, it was in the app, and the way to access the feature was actually to send a crescent moon emoji to a chat. So it was like the most buried and hidden feature you will imagine, but the data showed us really interesting. We saw tweets, and it became a little bit viral, actually, and we saw, a quite exponential curve of people are using it, and it kind of gives us some insights about what product is and what people want. It's not because you're going to put a lot of ads in front of people's face and call to action that they will actually use it. You really need to bring user value in order for people to use it. And it can be as buried as it can be. People will find their way and will go ways to activate and use it.
I love these kind of Easter eggs, right? Like as a user, you always feel like, wow, I've had this superpower to use this app, and nobody else knows how to do it, but it appears like in Twitter, like millions of other people knew that Easter egg too.
Yes, people find out.
But it shows, right, like if people go to that length to like get more power out of your product, it shows you've created something that's super powerful in the first place. But I love the simple hack to like tweet, put an emoji in there to change to dark mode. So I bet now it's much easier to change to dark mode and doesn't require an emoji anymore.
It is.
Super cool. And that's like a great story and like following what your users really want and need from your product. But with that, I want to also go to another topic that has been discussed by many speakers here before, which is designing for international markets. Right, so I would love to like have your experience and on many ways. Right, like what have you learned in building products? Because I mean, your products are basically everywhere and serving like 100 plus different markets. So what have you learned, and what is like kind of advice that you give to the audience? And especially also from the angle, right, like is people here that are from Romania, how can they successfully build global products?
Building global product obviously comes with many challenges because of the scale. I think there's a different buckets. I think the cultural bucket is one. We can go back to that in a second, but obviously there's the simple things, I will say. Accessibility, making sure your app is accessible by everyone, so not limit to a certain population. I think that the culture part is really interesting to me because some feature we thought will work in some markets actually wouldn't, and people are using the app just differently, In Asia, there's people really like to communicate through voice message. Actually, in Europe too, you will see people on their phone. They will never type. They will always just send voice messages back and forth. So that's also, while there's some cultural differences, it's also opportunities, right? So we spend quite some time trying to improve the flow of recording and consuming voice messages on Messenger and Instagram to just really cater to those markets. And obviously, localization is a big one, making sure your app is understood through all of the available languages. And I think those are like most of the challenges.
How do you learn? Do you like go and, let's say if you want to build a product for Asia, let's say India, do you go and like embed yourself there? Or how do you, right, like this, these insights, they sound so logical when you share now and when you observe. But let's say if like somebody here in Cluj wants to build a product that goes like viral in the Bay Area, how do they do that? Or viral in any other place in the world? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So understanding the local market is really important. Have some feet on the ground or do some user research on the ground, understand the ecosystem, the local ecosystem, what works, how people are relating to their devices and apps, how they use them, when they use them, and trying to find, what could work for those markets. It's usually really good to have experts, local experts that can advise you around, what will work for certain markets. So that's pretty much the way we will go about it.
Have you seen that you used to be based in Silicon Valley and now you're living in the south of France? I'm sure like a really awesome life, much nicer than the Bay Area these days. Hopefully nobody takes offense for me saying that. But anyway, have you learned this gave you like some new insights in building products as your environment now is like very much changed from south of France? Is certainly not as many tech folks as Silicon Valley. So has that changed your perspective on design as you moved into another environment?
I don't think I learned or my view changed drastically. I think everything is a bubble. Everything, either it's France, south of France, or Silicon Valley. People tend to be in this bubble where they see each other, working and using those personal devices, and I think that's how they kind of relate to each other, and so not a big difference. I think it's just like everybody's in their own bubble and they use things differently and at a different pace.
Just learning about each other's bubbles is then what it takes for building like high impact products.
And people will care more or less. Sorry, I interrupted you, but people will care more or less about technology depending on where they are, and so delivering value for the attention span that is given to you is very crucial, obviously. So making sure you deliver what the job to be done, right? What people want to do with your app, deliver that in a seamless and fast way.
100% agree. Very, very easy as a technologist to get fall so much in love with the technology that we forget that it's just actually a tool to create value for users. So speaking about tools, obviously we can't have this session without talking about generative AI. We had a really cool session this morning with a GitHub co-founder who talked about generative AI, LLMs in the context of coding. Mm-hmm. But I'm very eager to hear your perspective on generative AI in the context of design and how is it going to change how we're designing products.
Mm-hmm. I can talk about that for hours, so I'll try to be brief. But it is such an interesting thing, AI in general. Products that were niche or under the radar and kind of blew up like that. And I think the research and the tools were somewhat always there. It's just like how you productize the tech. Anyways, back to the question and the design side of it. I see AI as a tool. This is going to be something that's going to help you do things probably better, very likely faster. Will remove a lot of the repetitive task out of the way, and that will empower designers, engineers, everyone really to be more focused on the higher thinking, on the high level thinking. So it's going to freeze up quite some time. On the design side, there's the progress. The progresses that are made are just absolutely insane. The pace and the speed of evolution and progress is just absolutely mind-blowing for me. And witnessing that is incredible. So lots of tools that we can use on the design side, on content strategy too. So it is just an amazing space to be part of.
Yeah, it's quite miraculous to be alive in one of these big changes. Where I've seen this with mobile, we see this now with generative AI, where a lot of really, really cool changes happen very fast. And I think what you're saying is also super interesting. Is again very similar to what we heard about the people talking about engineers. That AI basically gives you the superpower, right? That before you had to do a lot of repetitive and boring tasks, and it's I think the way that you say it, and correct me if this is wrong, but it's not only making you more productive, it's making the people more happy because they can focus on like truly creating value, right? Like there's nobody who needs to create like another 100 buttons and like color some things and just like say, hey, do that for me. But you know, I want to focus on the concept. I want to focus on the vision that I have. And now I can get my vision to life much faster, which is right, like, which is design is about creating that. It's not about like coloring a button or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The iteration process is what's going to be big. When you start, I think it's going to open doors or solutions that you haven't thought about faster. And so obviously that will allow you to think through, you know, maybe I think bring up some new problems that you haven't thought about before because of like the iterations that are being done. But 100%, I think it's a superpower tool that everybody will be beneficial of using.
I'm very, very excited to see the journey in the next few months. So what is your advice? Because there's lots of like young founders and entrepreneurs in the audience. Like if you would like start something, what's your advice to them? Like how to use these new tools? So what is like a few things that you would tell people to do?
We just talked about it. It's a superpower, really. So I think the smaller you are, the bigger the impact is going to be. Because being on a startup, you have to put your hands everywhere at the same time, equally with equal talent, and it's not always easy. There's always something that are kind of left behind. And I think the tools of AI will definitely accelerate and empower the people. My recommendation, I mean, you know, it is just my opinion, but I think it is definitely worth looking at what's happening in the industry, what are the new tools that are available, and try to fit them into the pipeline as soon as possible. Obviously, start small, see if it's working, and then scale it up. But I think for everything from engineering, content design, design itself, marketing, you know, copywriting, everything in between is just going to be like a superpower tool that startups will greatly benefit. I think they will get from point A to point B way faster, and so that means going to market faster, get results faster, you know, be able to have more time to pivot or reorient their product to make them successful.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree that startups are the ones to benefit fastest because they can adopt it very fast. That is what my wife was joking that she now is an early stage entrepreneur that she has now AI as a co-founder. So it's super amazing to watch that space. With that, I think the other thing that you have a very unique insight, as I said in the opening, you've worked on several really large scale products, and one of the things that many people here will wonder is like how like product market fit, right? Like, so the early days of a startup, obviously you need to like really like, you have a vision, you implement it. And I wanted to ask you, right, like since you've seen like different products at different stages, is like, how do you like find product market fit, and how do you know you've found it? What is like your learnings on that whole like early part of the journey?
There's going to be, to me, there's probably two buckets of product market fits. The first one is the obvious one, how to get there. And the second one is going to be the sleeper product market fit. We talked about AI. This was an interesting one. Probably, you know, not a lot of people would have put billions on AI a few months ago. How do they found product market fit? We can talk about that. But the first bucket to me is more the traditional way to get to product market fit. So, you know, look at user engagement, look at all of the data available, quantitative and qualitative, understand what metrics and what counter metrics are useful for you and meaningful in achieving product market fit. The user feedback, having people hearing about how people are using the product, you know, what is broken and how to fix it, or is there something else they would like to do? Do they even want to do that in the first place? Because sometimes that happens. You think you work to solve a problem that really people do not really have. And that's probably the other aspect of the business side of you, like what is the business problem and what is the user problem, and how those two merges and balances them out in the end. For the sleeper one, really, I don't know, just it happens. You build something and it doesn't work, and the next day it's booming. It really is due to a lot of external parameters, trends, how people use their devices, what's cool, that's cool. Sometimes it's a thing. Yeah, so,
Yeah, you mentioned, right, like the AI stuff. I think that took a lot of people by surprise. But like even like when you hear like Sam Altman and the OpenAI guys talk publicly about it, right, like they're like, oh, we had the technology for a while, but then just it blew up once we put a chat interface on our stuff, right? Like because the AI models were not like inherently new, right? Like and it's like a lot of people, like even like I mean, if any other company, they're like suddenly like, wow, you use this tech which we have had for a few months, and then you put a chat interface on it, and it blows up to the fastest product, reaching like 100 million users, right? Like so, this is kind of this with a non-obvious one that like even the people created it haven't thought about it.
Can you imagine the pitch, like the pitch deck or their elevator pitch would have been the same like 10 years ago that it was for him, right? Just like you write something and you get really accurate answers. Okay, well that's AI in a nutshell, but that was the same pitch deck a few years ago. It's just now it is very much smarter and the interface is very simple and you get some really, and you can use that in many ways. The tech was there. Like just, I think the story was something like they had the tech, they were working on the next version, but Sam was like, we just need a product, like research and the tech is cool, but we need people to use it and put that into people's hands. And I think that's a good lesson too. Just like you shouldn't be thinking about things for too long. You need to make that a product and put that into people's hands so you can quickly gather traction or look at the engagement and more so the user feedback, how people are using them or using it. What's funny with this product is a lot of people like how they hacked it to do things that it was probably not intended to at the beginning. So that's more of the sleeper use case where you build something, if it's gonna work, and it's just blowing up.
Yeah, it's like it's just a tremendous like leaning into what you see users want, right? Like so I've seen this so many times that people build something and then they're just like, oh, that's really what my users want. That's not what I thought they want, but you know what? Like I'll just follow what works. So this I've seen this like over and over that in hindsight people tell always this genius stories for the master plan. But in the reality is they had a master plan, but only part of it worked, and then like they followed that part. So maybe also pivoting a bit to building like world-class design teams. Like you've been in different stages of your career. You've been in IC, you've managed larger teams, smaller teams. What's your advice for people that want to build a really like top-notch design team in the audience? What should they look for, and how should they go about it?
It's a good question. I think I will approach it, or I will give the advice the way I approach it. So as you mentioned in the intro, I'm self-taught. So I don't have any diplomas. I just learn myself, and I think that was through different characteristics. I think the first one is going to be the curiosity and the passion for the things you're doing. So when you hire people who are passionate and curious, I think that's a really good traits to have, because you will want to learn, how things works and try to reverse engineering them and spend time being a master of the craft. The second one is probably more of the growth-oriented mindset, which is take the feedback. How can everybody around me can make me better? So and how to incorporate the feedback and get the right feedback in order to get to the next level. And yeah, I think that's what I will do. And then when hiring with those characteristics, I will probably try to create a design culture, making sure the team works together, try to elevate themselves, do not work in silo. It's a team thing. Like the app we put out there is a teamwork. It's not like one person's job. So the app will be as good as the team, as good as the team is. So that will be
yeah, I 100% agree on that. Like I see, especially here, I mean, Cluj has tremendously strong like technical universities, so a lot of the like founders here do have a technical background. So building this team and like making like all disciplines heard is what at the end of the day makes a well-rounded product if everybody can bring their strength. So maybe like what is like your experience like on how to get different functions, product, design, engineering to work together in a high performance way? What's like one or two tricks that you would share with folks?
One or two tricks. I don't know if I have that many tricks, but I think collaboration is really important. Understanding that, I think the ego part is usually one of the things that I'm trying to work around. Making people understand that they're one team, they work toward the same goal. The baseline is a user problem mixed sometimes with a business problem, and try to like be smart about it and be open-minded about the feedback, because I think that's where you will build cohesion between the team. So I don't know if that counts as a trick, but definitely having a collaborative process, not being isolated in silo, having people work together as a team. That's usually what the big companies are doing, and that's what we do at Meta. It's just having people sit next to each other and be a team.
Yeah, no, this is very, very, very important to remember for all of us. So one final question. Assuming we'll give you like a billboard in downtown Cluj with an advice for like all the young like founders in the audience. So we give you like Piazza Uniri, the most central place. We give you like a big billboard and you can print like one sentence on it. What is it gonna say?
I will put a quest to, no.
A quest to advertisement.
Hey,
Always be selling. Always be selling.
Advertisement, no. Not to sound too cheesy or, inspirational, but something short, something catchy, because you'll probably drive through it, so not too many words. Embrace your potential maybe will be a pretty good one. I think it's a really good call to action, something that will make you reflect about what does that exactly means. And I think for me that will mean everybody has the ability to become what they want to become and do the things they want to do and be the best at it. It requires some work, dedication, but everybody can do it.
I love it. I agree. Everybody should be a master of their craft. So I love it. Embrace your potential. Thank you so much, Jean-Marc, for coming.
Thank you so much for
Thank you so much. It was awesome. Thank you, man.
Thank you.